Welcome to the CorelDRAW tutorial series. In this video, we're going to talk about basic navigation of Corel and how shapes work. CorelDRAW is a vector illustration program similar to that of Adobe Illustrator. And CorelDRAW tools will be available on the left-hand side of your workspace. When you select a tool, there will be a menu bar for that particular tool that changes up top. Every time I select a different tool, that menu bar slightly changes. The menu bar for that tool is where you'll make modifications and specifications for how you want that tool to operate when you're using it. If I choose this rectangle tool and draw a rectangle, I can apply colors to the rectangle by left-clicking on my color palette while my rectangle is selected. So you notice I can apply any of the colors available in my palette. Likewise, if I right-click on the color palette while that rectangle is selected, it will change the outline color. For those of you who use Adobe Illustrator, this is commonly referred to as the stroke. If I want to modify the thickness of that outline and or stroke, the settings for that would be down here. I'll double click on the outline option and then change the width. Now, there's several ways that Corel interprets objects. Currently, I have a rectangle that I just dropped in. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that rectangle and move it down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that rectangle to a curve. What that means is that the object in Corel's memory is no longer treated as a rectangle. It's now treated as a vector object without any rectangle properties. The original object that I have, I could use the node editor tool to round the corners and make other small adjustments to the way that the rectangle operates. But now that I've converted the second one already to a curve, if I try to use the node editor tool, it's simply going to allow me to edit nodes like any other vector object. It's not going to have those specialty properties anymore. Keep this in mind when you're drawing new objects or when you're importing vector items. Many times when you bring in vector items that are made by other people or other programs, they're not going to be saved in Corel's memory as a shape. They're going to be just a standard vector item, and the node editing tool will just simply modify nodes. The same principle applies to many of the different options here. For example, fonts are the same way. If I choose the font tool and I decide to type something out, I can specify what I want that font to be and how I want that font to operate prior to actually converting that font to a curve. If I choose that node editing tool again, I can space the font out further. I can also individually move and adjust certain letters if I need to. However, once I convert this font from a font to a curve, if I go back to that node editing tool, it no longer has any font properties. It's now just a standard vector object like anything else would be. There are different items and different objects that have different types of tool menus. The default for circles allows me to potentially create pie charts or semicircles or a Pac-Man. The default for example, a pentagon would allow me to like create a starburst or a star, or modify how many sides there are. For example, I could take that pentagon and make it 12. You can see I have more star patterns now. But again, once I convert these objects to curves, they're no longer modifiable in that way. They're now just standard vector objects.